Okay, well, get a little humor in the afternoon, that's always good. We have got an hour and a half now where we're just going to be slamming through a number of systems. Now that doesn't mean that the systems that we're covering are not really important. It's just that we only have a limited amount of time, and some of these systems are going to be covered in detail in the breakout sessions by the people who really work with this day in and day out, and that's the Member Services Department. So if you don't get all of this on the Dependable Client Services System, this is system number 4. When you go into the breakout, they're going to go right through every one of the details. And just to recap for a moment, here we had system number 1, strategic planning. And this is where you actually worked on the structure of your business, and you worked on your mindset, the whole idea of your primary aim, and then your strategic objective, which is how your business is going to contribute to what's important to you in life. And then there's a structure called the organizational strategy to make it all happen. Fabulous stuff. Then, once we got that in place, we had to go out and get some clients. So we had a whole marketing system that showed you how to do it with client referrals, with centers of influence, with seminars, and now this new rage thing called the internet and how you can use that. Unbelievable stuff. Now you've got a client. Or actually, we got somebody, a prospect that came in, and Sandy spent 2 hours telling you how to make sure that that prospect turned into a client so you can develop those rich, strong, deep relationships with that person. Okay, now you've got a client. Now you've got a retainer check. Now you've got a filled out client information form. And now you got to do the work. So does the Academy have a system for doing the work? You bet we do. And we know that a lot of Academy members are kind of improvising their own system. Well, what do I hope for the next 30 minutes or however long it takes me to get through this material, I want you to see that the Academy has a step-by-step system that we believe you should be following to guarantee that you get state-of-the-art documents out to the clients in a reasonable amount of time with very little stress in the office. And this is drafting, presenting, and executing state-of-the-art estate plans. And we want to know whether you're using the Academy systems for tracking the work from the moment that the firm is retained, for producing error-free documents, and for creating, of course, this surrounding kind of rapport which we're calling that wow transformational experience for the clients. Now, document production, the way the Academy does it is a 12-step program. And it just turned out when I was putting this together, I said, oh my God, isn't it great? It's a 12-step program. How can you, hello, my name is Robert, and I'm a drug addict and alcoholic. So what you want to know is 12 steps. It's easy to remember. And it's broken down into phases. There's 3 phases involved. Number 1 is planning, preparation, and communication. Step 1, step 2, steps 3, step 4. First 4 steps. Okay, next, phase 2 is the actual production of the documents through step 11. And then step 12 is the phase 3, the follow-up. Let's look at what happens here. And remember, if you don't get all of this in the room today, it's going to be really gone into in depth in the breakout sessions. The attorney retains the client by using the pain funnel with rapport, with listening skills in the Sandler program that Sandy talked about this morning. The attorney completes and proofs the client intake form, receives the retainer, and the final check and the final signing is scheduled at a time that you know your staff can produce the documents. And you've got something called a color-coded new client packet folder that's been created. Now, many of you, this may be news to you. We've got these packets that we created a long time ago. And there's a green one, and there's a red one, and there's a yellow one. And each of them means something about the client, whether they're ready to go forward right away, whether there are questions with the yellow cautions that you need to be concerned about. And red, of course, is a rush job. People are flying to Europe in 3 days and want to have their estate plan done. We talk more about that in a minute. But then the attorney, the new client data entry staff, they enter the data on the document tracking form. This is all in paper if you're using the document tracking form, but Counsel Pro follows all of these steps. So if you're using Counsel Pro, it's a piece of cake. You send out the appropriate letter after the clients are retained, a welcome letter, or you use a send-out cards. We haven't talked about that here at this event, but send-out cards is a marvelous system for really personalizing the relationship with the clients. Asset information that is given, either that it's sent out or it's given to them in the initial consultation meeting. Referral thank you if somebody else has referred the people. All of these letters, all of these forms are right in Counsel Pro. All you got to do is push the button and it will put out the appropriate letter and it will merge with all of the information about that client. And additional planning needs, remember the marketing rule is that you never sell two things at the same time. Big mistake if you have a client come in and you see, oh my God, this is a whale of a client. They got a $30 million estate. They're going to need a FLP. They're going to need a CRT. They're going to need all of this advanced planning. And you get so nervous and so excited that you start selling all of it to them at once. That's the quickest way to confuse a client. And the rule in marketing is a confused client is not a buying client. So you always want to sell one thing at a time. They come in for an estate plan, you do the basic plan first with a reference to the client that you may need them to come back in later to talk about additional planning that will help with their estate, reducing taxes and eliminating issues that may be involved in passing their estate on to their beneficiaries. But you in no way ever get involved in a conversation about how a CRT works and why an FLP is great for asset protection and all of that sort of stuff. Big mistake that some people make. So you talk about additional planning in a letter that goes to them if that's something that's appropriate, and you attach the document tracking form that goes to the next person in the process. The accounting staff. You know, the accounting staff may be the paralegal. We're just assuming you got somebody who's a bookkeeper or something. They get the document tracking form that shows that the client's been retained and all the information about them. And it's an entry in Counsel Pro and it's an entry in QuickBooks. And the accounting entry form goes along. Next, it goes to the the production department, the data entry staff, and they do what normally we're considering creating an estate plan. They're putting in all of the information on the CIF, the client information form. They're proofing the stuff that the attorney did. And let me tell you, some of you attorneys, my God, we have heard the kind of gibberish that you put on those forms that nobody, even when the paralegals bring it back to you, you can't even read your handwriting. Names are misspelled. Oh, Jennifer's going to be on me again about being too hard on you. But anyway, so they review all of the information that you got in the initial consultation, and then the data is entered and the documents are reviewed on the screen. In Counsel Pro, you enter the information and you push a button. Talk about sitting down in the air, going God knows how many miles an hour in a plane, how marvelous that is. Now, well, let me tell you, when I first started to practice law, they had things called typewriters. And they had carbon paper, and these poor secretaries would make a mistake, and they would have 6 carbons that they would be putting pages. How many remember that stuff? That ain't that long ago. Maybe it is a long time ago, but it seems like yesterday to me. And then the next biggest development was they had this thing called a mag card reader, where they put little cards. Was Selectric typewriters too? Yeah, and then that was better because now you had the thing that had the actual white tape, you know, that would erase the thing. That was like the biggest development ever in the practice of law. But then they had these computers that would feed these cards through, and it was like this massive NASA. You know, we have a room filled with these mag card readers from IBM. Well, things have come so far. Counsel Pro on your little laptop, probably one day it'll be on an iPad too, and you can actually assemble documents with a push of a button if you enter the right information. So then you send up the follow-up letters as necessary after the documents have been drafted. The production proofing people, now The attorney has put information, it has been proofed by the document production people, and then there's somebody who prints the documents against the CIF, and we've actually got a form, a checklist called the married proofing checklist and the unmarried proofing checklist, for somebody to actually go through and make sure that all of the information is correct on the documents. It verifies the information, the checklist, either on paper or do it in Counsel Pro, and if mistakes are found, guess what? It goes back to the previous department to make the correction. Then the attorney gets this final printed document, and he proofs it using the CIF to make sure that his recollection of the meeting and what's actually in front of them coincide. And they've got the married and the single to do that for the attorney. If mistakes are found, back to the production. You get the idea. All of this is recorded in Counsel Pro, so there is a trail of where this client has been from the moment the CIF was filled out all the way to when we've got final documents in paper in front of you that is the estate plan the client wanted. Then it goes to the final signing paralegal, reviews with the client using the phone final checklist. For those of you who are new to the Academy or thinking about joining the Academy, we created this marvelous step that makes life so much easier for the staff and for the attorneys and for the clients. Rather than having clients come in to sign documents that they've had no input with except during the time of the initial consultation, and what happens, of course, is the clients are sitting there ready to sign, and you've got piles of paper all over the place. You've got notary things all set up. You've scheduled the time, and the client says, oh no, my son's name is Brian. It's B-R-Y-A-N, not B-R-I-A-N. Oh, and they live in this city, not in this city. How many has that happened to? It happens to everybody. Sometimes the clients themselves give you the wrong spelling for their kids. Or they don't even remember the birthdays of their kids. And now it shows up in documents. Can I hear an amen? So there you are in the final signing. Everybody's booked. You got all of this paper. All these trees have been cut down. And now you've got to stop the process. And you've got to fix all of these documents so that you can get back on track. We said there's got to be a better way to do this because human error is a part of every sort of process where people are involved. So we said, let's create a phone final. And this is where the final paralegal gets the documents in front of her, and she's got the checklist and all of the information along with it, and she dials the phone. She calls the people and she says, have you got a few minutes? I know that you got a final signing meeting coming up to get your estate plan all done and the peace of mind that that brings, but I want to take a few minutes to go over to make sure we've got everything right. And then she goes through the checklist and spells everybody's name, finds out what the birthdays are correct, and once that's all done in the final signing, the phone final, then she says, your meeting is scheduled for Friday at 10 o'clock. Look forward to seeing you there. And by the way, the final fee, which is this amount of money, is going to be due at that time. Are you okay with that? Good. Now that's done. Now you've gone over with the clients all of the details of the trust before they get to the office. Now when they come in for the final signing, you know that everything is correct. The production portfolio assembly staff, they assemble 2 sets of the documents. First set is printed as the final signing documents, and another set is put on 3-hole punch so that it goes into the estate planning portfolio. Sends the printed document to the final signing paralegal, and there we go. That's the overview of the 12-step system, although we only got to step 11. This is it in more detail, and I put these into your slides only so that you could take them home and that you could sit down with your production staff and say, hey, are we doing this? Because if you're not, this might be a good time to make a commitment for 2012, or why not just the rest of 2011, to do it the way that we recommend. These are not frivolous suggestions. These suggestions are based on years and years of work with clients and with attorneys all over the country. So this is step 1, what the attorney does. And then step 2, he proofs the client intake form. And then he places the new client packet into a color-coded vinyl folder. And we just invented this because we thought there's so many different kinds of clients that if you've just got a folder with a bunch of papers in it, you'll never know who the special clients are with special needs. And not those kind of special needs, but needs that are going to be addressed as a part of their being retained. And the folder contents are going to contain the completed client intake form, what we refer to at the Academy as the CIF. It's going to have the retainer check. And it's going to have the legal services agreement that all of you are going to get signed, detailing exactly what your engagement standards are, and also you're going to have any legal requirements dictated by the state that you practice law in. It's all going to be laid out. Everything is very clear. Red if it's a rush, people have to have it. Yellow if there are special conditions. And of course, green is the standard. Go ahead, what you want to have is all green folders throughout the office. Okay, and then the attorney forwards the folder to the data entry staff. We talked about what the data entry staff does, and then we talked about the accounting and how everything is logged into QuickBooks and Counsel Pro. And then we talked about the production staff enters the data in Counsel Pro and proofs the CIF for accuracy. We went through this a moment ago. Step 6 sends the production follow-up letters. And here's something that I want to spend a couple of moments on. The procrastinating clients with the late asset booklet, you send a letter out to these people reminding them that the information is due. You set out the final signing appointment. You determine a reasonable date, and all of that is laid out in step number 6. Step number 7, it's all proofed against the CIF. The attorney then proofs it again. The final signing person does the phone final, confirms and schedules the final signing appointment, reminds the client of the balance of fees due, enters all the information on the form and into Counsel Pro, and sends the new client packet to production to assemble the portfolio and get the originals all ready for the final signing. And then 2 sets of proofed and corrected documents are assembled. We talked about that a moment ago. And then number 11, generate the funding letters in Counsel Pro. By the way, many of you may not be aware that Counsel Pro version 6A is out, and many, many members have it, and it contains a completely revamped lifetime funding and post-mortem funding. All the trust administration module is a part of Counsel Pro 6A. It is so easy to create funding now because it uses the database side rather than the document production side. So all of the inventory of assets of the clients can be tracked and noted. You print the funding letters and add documents for the needed signatures, and you send the documents to the final signing paralegal. Now this all sounds like a lot of words and a lot of work, but if you have the machinery in place and all of your staff is trained in how to do it, this is a piece of cake. And there shouldn't be any errors in your documents. Step number 12 is that the final signing paralegal sends to procrastinating clients the unable to contact letter if you can't get a hold of them, and changing from active to inactive status. How many people have sent out a letter to a client and says, look, you haven't come in for 8 or 10 months and we're going to just change your status of your file from active to inactive? Anybody sent those letters? Good, because that is something that's not only appropriate to do for the client, but it saves your butt later on if they drop dead without signing the documents and an error comes to you and says, well, wait a minute, they were in the process of retaining you to do this work. Why didn't you get it done? And you can point to the fact that you called them, reminded them, sent them a letter, and the ball was in their court. So it's really, really helpful. And again, all of these letters are all pre-written for you, all in Counsel Pro. Now, we go to the final signing. The final signing is a mixture of science and art. And if you've got a final signing paralegal, that's one of your principal, prime staff members. They are gods and goddesses because they get a chance to really deepen the relationship with your clients. And we have a complete system. We actually created a video out of it with, you know, the paradigm of the perfect final signing paralegal. And that's Jan Draper. And Jan has been with our firm, well, forever. I mean, she's been there for a long, long time, has grown up with the academy, knows all of the systems. And so she put together a new video, a DVD, and you get it from your PBC, and she walks you through the proper procedure for handling all of those papers. The originals, the copies, the notaries, the witnesses, and all of that. It is step by step. It's a military operation. And any of you that have done a final signing know that if you get things out of whack, if you get papers mixed up, it's history. You have got a lot of problems on your hands unless you do it exactly the way we tell you to do it. Not because our way is the best, although it is great, it's that you've got a system that you follow. It's consistent, and you can pass that on from employee to employee. So that's the final signing procedure, and the whole process of creating flawless documents in a presentation to the client in the portfolio with somebody who really cares about them at the final signing is something that is a wow and transformational experience. They're not going to get any place else they go to get legal services. So that is system number 4, and now I'm going to quickly turn it over to Sandy to do system number 5.